All right, we're going to continue on in our discussion about India, and we're going to talk about religious beliefs in India, as well as different empires and the earliest people who came into India, which are called the Aryans. So we refer to this as the Aryan migration. Just like we talked about last class, right? Very mysterious origins in terms of what happened here in the Indian subcontinent. Because remember, we're not able to decipher or translate the language. But after the Aryans come, they do have a language that they bring, and we are able to know a little bit more about India now. So what we have right here is the Hindu Kush Mountains, and what the Aryans do is they find a little way, like a little narrow passageway right here through the Hindu Kush, and that allows them to come in and invade India. Without that, they would have to climb over the Hindu Kush or climb over the Himalayas, which would be very difficult. So for them, finding this Khyber Pass was really important and dramatically changed the history of India. We're not totally sure, but they're probably a pretty warlike culture. But they did contribute a lot of important things to India, including Sanskrit, which is a written language, as well as the caste system, which will be very important in terms of Hinduism, the major religion of India, and Hinduism. So when the Aryans invaded in here, they were able to mix their culture with the culture of the people who were already living in this area. And from that, we have Hinduism, which we'll talk about in just a minute. All right, here's the Khyber Pass. Remember I told you like this narrow passageway that they found? Can you imagine if they had to spend so much time climbing over these big Hindu Kush mountains, instead being able to find this little passageway, kind of like this little hallway here through in the Khyber Pass. Okay, here we have up here, here's the Hindu Kush Mountains. Okay, and here comes the Aryans this way through the Khyber Pass. Their culture mixes with those who are already here, and we will have Hinduism and the rest of the history of India. Here's Sanskrit, right? Remember, Sanskrit is so important now that there's a written language, a language that unites the people of India. Now we are able to understand more about the history of this area. All right, the caste system. The caste system is a social structure brought to India by the Aryans, and there's 4 categories of castes. They're also called Varnas. We have the Brahmins, who are the priests, they're at the very top. We have the Kshatras, which are the warriors. Vaishyas, which are merchants, people who sell stuff. The Sudras, who are like farmers or common workers. And then we have the untouchables, right? And they are at the very bottom. They're not even in the caste, they're below the caste. And we'll kind of talk about what that means for India and what that means for Hinduism. You are born into a caste according to your family occupation. Okay, so if your father is a priest, you will also be a priest. Or if your family is merchants, then you will also be a merchant. So it's something that you are born into, and it kind of is based on the belief of reincarnation. That's part of Hinduism, but we'll talk about that more later. You can never get out of that, right? Once you're born into it, the only way that you can get into a different part of the caste is through rebirth, through reincarnation. I'll show you a picture of it. Here's the caste system. Okay, Brahmins at the top. Then we have the Kshatras, which are the warriors. Vaishyas, which are merchants. And Sudras and Pariahs, which are the untouchables. And you also see in Mr. Green's crash course video, this also kind of represents the head, right, the arms and the legs, the hands of a Hindu god. Okay, so like I said, another big contribution from the Aryans. They're going to blend their beliefs with those people who are already in India, and what we get from that is Hinduism. Okay, and the next major world religion that we talk about. So let's learn and talk more about Hinduism. All right, the history of Hinduism. Hinduism is the oldest major religion in the world. We talked about Judaism first, which is the oldest monotheistic religion, but Hinduism is the oldest major religion, and it's polytheistic. No one knows exactly how it began. Because the Hindus believe in reincarnation, it's really hard to understand the idea of time, because it basically time never ends. It never begins, it never ends. It's always a continuous cycle. So it's really hard for some historians to figure out some kind of the order of how things went, so to speak. Okay, but we know it's been practiced for at least 3,500 years. Hinduism is based on two holy texts, right, the Vedas and the Upanishads, and it is tied to a caste system in the social structure, right? So that social structure that the Aryans brought is going to be very much part of Hinduism and the cycle of rebirth. And after we finish talking about Hinduism, we will begin to talk about Buddhism, which is very similar. In the same way that you cannot have Christianity without Judaism, you can't have Buddhism without Hinduism. Buddhism evolves from Hinduism. All right, there's three major gods, remember, so this makes Hinduism polytheistic. We have Brahma, which is the creator. He's more than just like a god, he's really the god, like the god of everything. And then we have Vishnu, the preserver, and Shiva, the destroyer. Hinduism beliefs, dharma, which is your duty, right, that you are performing inside your caste the appropriate way. If you are a merchant, then you should be a merchant. If you are a Brahmin, then you should be being a priest, right? You should be teaching other people about Hinduism. That's your dharma, that's your duty, what you're supposed to do. And your karma is how you live this life, and your karma determines how your next life will be. You ever heard that term, good karma, what goes around comes around, right? It's the same kind of thing that we have here in Hinduism. If you do good things, then good things will happen to you, and good things will happen to you in your next life as well. But the ultimate goal of Hinduism is to achieve moksha, and that is when you are free from the cycle of reincarnation. You are one with the universe, one with the gods. You have performed your dharma very well, you have good karma, and now you have achieved moksha. And the way you achieve moksha is in this reincarnation, the rebirth of the soul. And as long as your soul keeps on doing it right, keeps on having good dharma, good karma, you will achieve moksha and no longer have to be reincarnated. You will be one with the universe, one with the gods. Okay, more Hinduism beliefs. People have two parts, the Atman, which is kind of like their soul, and then the body, right? But when you achieve moksha, your soul breaks free of the material world and unites with the Brahman. So that's the overall goal of Hinduism. More Hindu beliefs. Hindus believe that everything has a soul, or Atman. They believe that this Atman is part of Brahman, just like everything else, right? So Atman could be not just a person, it could be food, plants, animals. But like I said, the ultimate goal of Hinduism is to reach moksha, freedom or salvation for Hindus. This is the highest spiritual point. You are one with the Brahman. And each person has his or her own dharma, a path to moksha. Everyone's life is different depending on your caste. There's no specific set of laws or rules. All right? More Hindu beliefs. Oh, sorry. All right, just more about karma. This is your behavior, right? If you treat people good, then good things will happen to you. Good deeds create positive karma, bad deeds create negative karma. Right? Positive karma moves you closer to moksha and closer to Brahman, the very top of the caste. Remember, here's the caste system, right? So if I have good karma, right, if I am doing good things, then good things will happen to me. So maybe I was a warrior or a merchant, maybe even an untouchable. As long as I have good karma, right, and I'm performing my dharma correctly, I can move up the caste system here through the cycle of rebirth and eventually become a Brahmin, right? But unlike in Buddhism, you cannot become a Brahmin in one lifetime. You need to be through the cycle of reincarnation. You have to be having good karma and good dharma, and then you can move up here, okay? All right, more beliefs. Reincarnation, sorry, very important for Hindus, right, that it's continuous, it's forever. There's birth, there's death, and there's rebirth. And remember, what happens after your death, where you're going to be reborn. If you're going to move up the caste, right, if you're going to increase and become closer to Brahman, that's because you've had good karma, right? You have been doing good deeds and you have been performing your duties with your dharma. So if you've been a good merchant, maybe in the next life, you can be a warrior. If If you're a good warrior, in the next life you can move up to be a Brahmin, and the closer you will be to achieving moksha. You may be reborn into a higher or lower caste, right? So maybe you didn't have good karma. Maybe you were not a good person. You didn't perform your duties well. You didn't do good acts, and you might be reborn or reincarnated into a lower caste. But reaching moksha, remember moksha is the ultimate goal of all Hindus. Reaching moksha is the #1 goal, and when you do it, you are released from the cycle of reincarnation, and now you are allowed to be one with the Brahman, and no longer have to be reincarnated, no longer have to worry about your karma and your dharma and moving up the caste system through reincarnation. All right, take a look at this picture here. What do you see? Right, this picture illustrates a major belief here in Hinduism. If you notice what this guy looks like, what this lady looks like, we have kind of a younger man becoming older, dying, and then becoming a baby again, right? And then a kid, and growing up. Right? So what do you think this whole image represents? What do you think? I think you know it. It represents reincarnation, right? The cycle of rebirth, the continuous evolution. There's no beginning, there's no end. It lasts forever. All right? Again, why it's really hard for us as historians to understand Hinduism, because the earth has been reborn so many times, right? People never die, right? They're always reincarnated. It's always this cycle. So the way that Hindus or people in India think about time is going to be a little bit different than we do in other parts of the world. Something to keep in mind. All right, a quick little summary. The founder, it's unknown, right? We know that the Aryans mixed with the people of India at the time, and maybe that's how we got Hinduism, but remember, there was no written language yet, so we are kind of making guesses. A lot of mystery here in Hinduism and in Indian culture. The sacred texts are the Vedas and the Upanishads. The location is India, right? The date founded was, we think, around 4000 BCE. Historical figures, Gandhi, which you'll learn more about next year. The law is very important. Your dharma. Remember, dharma. Look, D, duties. Dharma is your duties, that you are performing what needs to be done in your caste. Your karma is more about how you're doing it, how you are treating other people. If you have good karma, good things come to you. All right, so you get your dharma together and your karma together in a good combo, then life will be good for you, and you will be able to be reincarnated into a higher caste. All right, is it mono or polytheistic? It is polytheistic, a belief in many gods. And the place of worship for Hindus would be a temple. A person who is a leader is the Brahmin. And there is one made God, the Brahman. It's not a specific being. It doesn't have a gender. It's not he, she. It's more of like this overall concept of like the universe, right? The highest kind of spiritual part of Hinduism. All right, and there's too many different types of Hinduism to count, so I won't even get into that. All right, look what we're going to learn about next class. We'll learn more about the Mauryan Empire and the Gupta Empire, and then the evolution of Hinduism into Buddhism. How excited are you? I'm even giving you a quick sneak peek. All right, but back here to the Hindu summary chart. After this, okay, you are going to watch Mr. Green and the Hinduism crash course. It's going to summarize everything that I've talked about here. And then after that, you will do the Hinduism wrap-up Google Doc. All right, it's a Google form, multiple choice questions, a couple short answer. Show me what you know. And then we will get back together and talk about your answers and answer any questions that you have about Hinduism.